Welcome to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. Here, we wander together into the woods to explore ourselves, the world around us, and the mysteries and joys of life through the tarot. I'm your host, Mari, a professional tarot reader and a musician. Grab your deck, and off we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Into the Woods. I'm so excited about today's episode because it is my first interview with a guest. I interview another tarot reader. Her name is Melissa Anderson, and we have such a great discussion about the way she uses tarot, her work in therapy, crazy tarot synchronicity stories, all kinds of stuff. I found Melissa on social media and just really resonated with her take on the cards, her way of working with them, and just have always really enjoyed her work and her content. She's also given me a reading and is an absolutely fantastic reader. So a little bit about Melissa. Melissa is a tarot reader and a therapist specializing in religious trauma. Both practices are rooted in her own journey of regaining trust in herself after growing up in a controlling, high-demand environment that encouraged conformity and obedience to external authority over trust in self. Tarot found her in the midst of COVID lockdowns and became a surprisingly life-changing way of returning to the parts of herself she had been conditioned to silence. Understanding that her story is far from unique, Melissa is passionate about helping others reclaim the parts of themselves they were taught to minimize or shut down. Beyond readings, Melissa enjoys helping others cultivate their own relationship with the cards through workshops, one-on-one tarot mentoring, and community experiences that encourage curiosity over rigid rules and self-trust over searching for a single right interpretation. I'm so excited to share this discussion with you. Please enjoy my interview with Melissa. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for being my very first guest on Into the Woods. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm excited too. Thank you so much for having me.
I just want everyone to know that you were, in fact, my very first professional tarot reading. And it was a case of social media working like at its very best, I feel like. I have like such a conflicted relationship with social media, and most of the time I hate it. But I had like just started a new account for tarot stuff and was like just looking to follow some other tarot accounts. And somehow yours was like one of the first ones suggested. So anyway, I just was poking around your account and just really resonated with the way your approach to the cards and thought it was so lovely. And I had been working with the cards on my own for quite a while and just thought, you know, I should probably experience like a reading from somebody else at some point. And so I just literally cold reached out to you. That's just how that happened.
I'm so glad you did. I'll be honest, I don't remember anything about the reading or what I said. And yeah, I feel like, I don't know about you, but I often am like, what did I just say in the reading? I very much forget the actual reading, but it was a joy to read for you. And likewise, now that I've been following your account and listening to your podcast, I just align and resonate so much with how you talk about the cards and relate to the cards. So I'm very excited to be here and chat with you again.
Yes. Okay. So funny story too. I was just poking back in our conversation on Instagram. You had sent me the picture of my spread. And you did it like a little modified Celtic cross, just like the center cross stuff. And the main center card was the Tower. Oh. And I remember just at the time being like, yep, that's exactly where I am. Like life had totally crumbled after having children. And I was kind of finding my way back. And tarot has been a big part of finding my feet again. So thank you for being an early part of that journey for me. And I really appreciated the experience I had with you. It was really positive first reading. So yeah, thank you so much. For any interview that I do with tarot readers, I'm planning to ask this as my first question to everyone. So very important question. How did you acquire your first tarot deck?
I bought my first deck.
Nice.
So I know, yeah, I had heard the tradition that you should be gifted the deck. And it was in the midst of my own deconstructing religious beliefs that were never mine, and kind of the spiritual coercion, like other people's rules. I was trying to step outside of that. So I heard that and decided, I was like, fuck that. Can I swear on
yes,
here?
you can. Yes.
I was like, fuck the rules. I went to a local metaphysical shop here. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. The shop is called the Voodoo Shop. It's like outside of someone's garage in their home, and
Wow.
they have a whole beautiful collection of cards, and not necessarily decks that you see in the mainstream. So my first deck was a Botticelli, like a golded Botticelli deck.
Ooh.
My understanding is the artist digitally took pieces of Botticelli artwork and pieced them together into cards. And the cards shine in the light, but they've got a sense of darkness to them. It's a deck that I only really use for myself most of the time. I have some that I use for others, some I just use for myself, but it is gorgeous. Every time I pull it out, I notice something new in a card or relate to something in a different way. Yeah, that's how I got my first deck.
That sounds like a really special deck. I don't believe in, of course, you have to be gifted your deck. I feel like I heard there was the origin of that has more to do with the fact that they weren't easy to get your hands on back in the day. So it wasn't so much like a rule, but that's just generally how it happened more often, was like you kind of had to be gifted one or handed down one because they weren't very common. I don't know how true that is, but I heard it somewhere, I think on like either another podcast or maybe in a tarot book I read. So that sort of gatekeepy, you have to be gifted one. Is it really true anyway? So on that note, why don't we just dig into what I'm calling your tarot origin story? I mean, you just mentioned a little bit of religious deprogramming. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you were looking for when you used it, or just like what piqued your interest at first, and a little bit about your journey using the tarot and how you came to eventually read it and maybe use it in therapy and things like that?
Absolutely. I feel that tarot found me. It was never something I really gave much thought to. You know, culturally, I think most of us have some awareness that people read tarot. We see the death card in media and things like that. And the environment I came from, I knew there were beliefs around it, like drawing out evil spirits. We don't mess with that. We don't touch that because it's access to the devil, essentially. So that was light. That was kind of like a light programming. A little bit before COVID, I was already in a big time of transition in my life. And then COVID hit and lockdowns hit. And I was one of those people who kind of enjoyed COVID lockdowns.
I'm with you a little bit.
Yeah, it was just like no social expectations, no FOMO. I kind of learned at the time how much I was overstimulated. Also, like many of us, I got diagnosed with ADHD a couple years later, and just kind of appreciated being able to slow down and be with myself. And I wasn't forward thinking that. I wasn't intending to do that. That's just naturally what I was doing. So I was going on really long walks and listening to new music and reading books and exercising more and just being with myself more, being in nature more. And like a lot of people, I was watching some really culturally significant shows for the first time. So I was watching Mad Men. I had never seen it before. And there's an episode early in the series where John Hamm's character gets a tarot reading. It hit me so hard.
Whoa.
Something about that, just like, I remember the way the reader on the show described the world card. He looks at the world, and you see it's like a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, I believe she's using. And he points at the world and he goes, "Who's that?" And the reader says, "She's the soul of the world." It like gives me chills to think about it now. And she says, "That's you. You're part of the world. You're water, your fire, your earth." And I was like, oh my God, it felt like a message for me. And it's wild. I was like in my late 20s at that point, being like, I'm part of the world. So I think two things were happening. One was it felt like a channeled message for me. I don't mean to sound grandiose. It just felt like I connected to a meaning there. And it also piqued my curiosity. I was like, it would be really cool to be able to look at a card and know what it means and understand what it means and be able to do that. So my kind of COVID obsession while everyone was baking sourdough bread was devouring any and all information I could about tarot. And that actually came for several months before I had the courage to actually buy my own deck.
Yeah, wow. So you were just like reading book. Okay, first of all, that's such a cool story about Mad Men. I've never seen the show, but I even was getting chills as you were telling the story. I love how it like somehow came through as a direct message to you. That is so neat. So you were just like devouring books and stuff before you even had a deck.
Yeah, I was. And what I didn't realize I was doing at the time was I think I had reached a point in my own faith deconstruction where I had been really stuck. Like I was telling people at the time, they would ask, do you still believe in God? Do you think you'll join another church? And I would say no. If I can't believe I said this, I would say if the Mormon church wasn't true, nothing is.
Ooh.
And that like feels really icky. It's like I didn't believe that Joseph Smith had a vision in upstate New York in 1820 and founded the only true church from that. Like I knew that wasn't true, but I was still so clearly buried in the like their thought patterns and their belief systems that I was like, well, if that's not true, nothing is, and that's really sad.
Yeah.
Tarot started as this like just very innocent curiosity, and I was connecting with the symbols and the images, and I was finding the history and more so the lack of history that we know about tarot so fascinating.
Yes.
And it was really helping me think for myself for the first time and tune into myself.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, coming out of like a strong religious background, especially, I feel like that can really limit how much you think for yourself because you're really used to relying on like a set of rules or just beliefs that everyone else around you subscribes to. So it's like, why would you need to make those opinions for yourself, right? So I that totally makes sense, kind of this arc of being like, oh gosh, like I really don't think I believe any of this. But then how do I learn to experience things and understand how I relate to the world myself? And I feel like that's really why tarot is such an incredible tool. I don't come from the same kind of religious background. That's not my story. But I think that tarot has helped me work my way out of the programming of the rest of society. For me, it was more about kind of capitalistic stuff like productivity, work, just like always working hard, always being of use, like always working towards career. I had kids and sort of realized like, wow, none of that is true or important. But now like what is and like what do I believe? I don't really know. So for me, I feel like in the same way, tarot has been such an empowering tool for self-discovery and for finding my own truth and going about life in the way that I really want to.
It's all systems of oppression. We all have our own unique experiences within those systems and the flavor, the volume on them. So yeah, I think anyone and everyone could relate to their own degree to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So you, in addition to being a tarot reader, are also a therapist. I'm sure you're an incredible therapist. You seem like such a lovely, lovely person to work with.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, like where you see, I mean, we just talked a little bit about how it can help empower you, but how do you see tarot as a companion to therapy? And I'm curious whether it's something you do in your sessions or do you generally keep them as separate offerings? Like how do you work with the two?
That is such a great question. The Venn diagram of tarot and therapy has a really strong overlap. When I was new to tarot, no part of me thought that I would see it in combination with therapy, use it in therapy. What I've come to realize, so I had been a therapist for a few years by the time I discovered tarot. And I'm really glad I found it early in my career because at this point, I see tarot and I see therapy both as channels for healing, spaces for healing, tools for healing. I think when I say healing, like when I'm working with a tarot client or therapy client, my goal for that person is to help them discover themselves, discover what they already know, right? Unbury themselves from whatever sort of social expectations, belief systems, everything we've named to this point, how that's affected them, leave behind what's not for them, and just channel into who am I at my most authentic self? What truths do I already know what truths are already within me. So that's what I mean when I say healing. And in both roles, right, there is kind of an innate sense of authority as a therapist, as a tarot reader. And I hate that. And so much of that is like capitalism, right? Like I'm taking your money, so there is authority, or you are trusting me because I have certain credentials and skills. So I'm always trying to be aware of that and how that shows up in the room, while also empowering people, giving space and creating conditions to help them connect back to what they already know. In terms of using it directly in therapy, I do sometimes, maybe not as much as I think people in my life expect me to. And part of that is because I'm a therapist that specializes in forms of complex trauma like religious trauma. So I'm constantly scanning and vigilant to anything, any introduction or offering from anyone outside of the person could feel like a threat, or it could bring up something unexpected or challenging. So I try to be very cautious with any sort of tool, whether that's tarot or EMDR or parts work. So I tend to follow up fires. So if someone seems to be curious about tarot, or they bring up that they use tarot in their own practice, or now I have been getting clients who are finding me as a tarot reader and know I'm a therapist and are seeking me out for that. And I've never done a reading in therapy. And I don't know that I never would, but I use it more. I think it's akin to how art therapists would use different forms of art in therapy. So we might be talking about something, and I might ask, what tarot card does this remind you of? What archetype does this bring up? Or if there's a deck, maybe we pull a card and find ways just to talk about the symbolisms, the patterns, the images, and how it relates to what they're feeling, just helping them tap into really intuition, self-trust.
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. I loved your definition of healing in general as almost just getting to know yourself better, like uncovering what's really under there after all we've, learned and been conditioned to do. I think that's so true. And I don't know, now that spirituality and like all these things are kind of more mainstream, sometimes the word healing is like kind of gets icky. Like, I don't know, maybe icky's not the right word, but it's like, okay, like my healing journey. Like, and sometimes you just have to use the word because that's really what it is. But do you know what I mean? When like some of these things start to become so used so heavily, like manifestation, that word, or, healing, like sometimes they just become like too loaded because of the baggage that comes with the term now. So I love that you stopped to clarify what you meant by healing, and that it's really this journey to know yourself better. Using the tarot to identify the archetypes is, genius. I love that. And I think it makes sense, for many reasons. Obviously, if you're working with a lot of people with religious trauma, like there is a lot of religious symbolism in the tarot. And even just the devil card alone might absolutely freak somebody out, even if they don't have a religious background. I feel like that always creeps people out if they're not really thinking of it on a symbolic or archetypal level. But also just kind of the expectation that when you go into therapy, it does feel different. Like when you go into a tarot reading, you're maybe looking for a different type of experience than in therapy.
I haven't been able to find words to describe it, but it feels like a different energy pool when I'm in a therapy session with a client versus a tarot reading.
Yes.
It's almost like they come from the same main body of water, but it's like, it feels like the same, but also very different at the same. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah, it does feel muddled. Both scenarios, the people are looking for help. They're looking for guidance, maybe looking to, get out of a situation or move on or improve life in some way. But it does feel different, like choosing therapy versus choosing a tarot reading. There is something different about that choice. And also, therapy is something you can do every week. I don't really think a tarot reading weekly is beneficial. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you really need to sit.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and like see how things play out and learn how they show up in your life. Whereas therapy, that's a combo of tarot and therapy. You heard it first here, everybody. With therapy, I feel like there is more of this long-term ongoing relationship with the person as a guide or a trusted ear and things like that. So I'm not sure that really helps clarify anything, but it does have a different energy. You're absolutely right.
Something else just on the therapy pipeline. Like the longer I've practiced as a therapist, the more I buy into the work and the teachings of Carl Jung, who also, while he, of course, very overtly informed the world of psychotherapy, never worked with tarot or wrote on tarot, other people have used his teachings to write about tarot and to look at tarot. And a lot of his work and the beliefs that the psyche, like images, archetypes, patterns, our dreams, what we see, how we see things, how we make meaning, that's like a window into our psyche. That's a window into, I think in therapy, it's a window into our psyche. And tarot, it might be more of a window into our soul, just how we think about that, how we label that. And there's so much, I just feel like overlap with both of those.
Some of my favorite tarot books are those that talk pretty heavily about Jungian psychology paired with tarot. And those are some of my favorite approaches as well. One thing I wanted to circle back to was your mentioning that you're in this position of power and how that's an interesting dynamic to work with as a tarot reader. The last episode that I released, which was the one about embracing the unknown, I just put it out. It was inspired by me dinking around on TikTok, and I got a tarot reader, like a live stream of a tarot reader came up, and I had never seen this before. And it was someone speed answering yes/no questions. And it made me so uncomfortable because it just felt like she held the fate of everybody in her hands and was just kind of giving these ultimate answers. As a tarot reader myself, that is just like so not the way that I like to use tarot. And I really do think that it should be more about like empowering the person or empowering yourself if you're using it for yourselves. I love that you brought that up too, and that's something that's on your mind and is important to you. So I don't know, like, how do you feel about that? There's such an interesting spectrum of tarot readers, from I'm determining the future here to, we're doing deep shadow work. What are your feelings about that spectrum?
I have so many thoughts on that. I did. I listened to that episode just last night. And
yes.
It was the kind, hearing you talk, I was like, I hit cleaning my house and had it in my earbuds, and it was so much like nodding and like, yes, Mari. Yes. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I see in the world we live in, right, in the capitalist, patriarchal, misogynistic world we live in, we are all conditioned, again, on a volume knob, based on our experiences, our context, our demographic, our timing, our generation, our location, our skin color, so many things impact and influence conditioning on certainty. So to some degree, we are conditioned and programmed to look for certainty, to look externally for answers. For example, like growing up in a high demand, rigid, controlling type of, I do identify as a cult survivor. I did grow up Mormon. I know not all Mormons are ex-Mormons. Resonate with the word cult. I could, again, talk for hours and hours about why that's a word that resonates with my particular experience, my particular even family culture and how that was interpreted. You might be able to speak on your experience with this, but I find that people will often come to tarot readers looking for an answer, like what you were seeing on TikTok. Yes, no questions. Yeah. Like I personally tend not to answer yes, no questions, right? You might interpret like a 10 of swords. I think that was the example in your episode yesterday. That's interpreted as a no. Whereas I think a question about like, is this person the right person for me? You pull a 10 of swords. That might be, hey, whatever thought loop you're in is over. Maybe it's the end of a cycle for how you're thinking about this relationship. Maybe that's what's ending. It doesn't necessarily mean this is definitively the right person for you. This is not the right person for you. And that can cause so much harm.
Yes.
When we think that we have the answers, we think that we have truth. Like if I think I know the truth for you in your life and I position myself with that authority, you might be likely to believe that and make decisions based on what I'm saying versus what you're feeling, or based on what's actually right and healthy and best for you and your path. I do have deep respect and honor for, there are, I think, cultural contexts and beliefs where people believe in the divining about it. Like, I have so much respect for that. And I know that I'm not coming from those cultures. I'm not coming from that position. So I try to always check myself and lean more into what a person knows versus certainty. But our human brains really want all or nothing, black or white. And
Yes.
that simply isn't how the world around us works.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's so wow. Let me just say, in an earlier episode, like one of my first, maybe it was like episode 3 or 4, I talk a lot about not giving your power away to the cards. And obviously, this was before the TikTok tarot reader experience by like months. And I literally used the example of, let's say you're doing a relationship reading and you pull the 10 of swords. That was my example. And I literally said almost exactly what you just said about it, that maybe this is the end of a cycle and you're about to move on to something like even better, or like maybe you're just done with old patterns from old relationships and this new relationship is going to be the next step. Like, it was the same interpretation. And then, fast forward and I see it's like, is this my forever person? 10 of swords. Absolutely not. Like, the reader was like, no, that's a hell no. And I was like, wait, I don't know. Like, and I do think it's like, we have to experience it for ourselves. Like, you have to just go through it and learn the lessons. And, in the episode I talked about, like, do we think, would you guess that she just turned around and broke up with the person? I don't think so. My guess would be no.
So yeah.
My guess would be no. She's going to have to like learn it for herself before she makes that decision. So, but it's like, paying the $10 for someone to give you that no. What is that about us? Like, we just want that moment of relief of having an answer. I'm so curious about this part of human nature, because if you go in seeking for the answer, but then you don't change at all, then what was it all for? That was kind of like, this was the big question for me about that last episode is, I guess it's just an unconscious behavior. You're doing it thinking you're going to change, but then you don't. Or I don't know. What's your take on this as a therapist?
I think it's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
When we think that we have an answer, that's why we see so many people staying in abusive relationships or any kind of environment that from the outside looking in, it's easy to see that's harming you, that's hurting you. Why? But there's so much more comfort in what we're familiar with. There's so much more comfort in having an answer or the illusion that we have the answer.
I want to switch gears a little bit and just ask you a little bit about your personal tarot practice and what you do reading for yourself. Like, are you a daily card pull person, a big journaling person? What's your practice with yourself with the cards?
That is all over the place. That is always changing.
Good.
I think when you reached out to me like a month or two ago, and I was in a place where I told you I was feeling really disconnected from tarot and I think my own spirituality. So I go through big phases where I might not touch the cards at all or for myself for weeks or months at a time. When I first started with tarot, I was pulling cards daily. So I would pull like a card a day. The purpose of that was more learning and developing a relationship with the cards than actual like inner self-work. And that worked at the time. And it got to a point where I think it was confusing things, and I would do that, plus I would watch like YouTube tarot readers, and I would do readings for myself a lot, and it was too much. It was too complicated, confusing. I would kind of pick and choose what I wanted to hear, and I'm also very hard on myself when I read for myself. I find it so much easier to read for other people and to help walk them through the process of what does that bring up for you, or just to be curious with them, or to pull something like the Tower card or the Devil card and not freak out or be like, oh, that's actually, you already know that in your bones, whatever's going on. That's actually, those cards might pull up some of the most profound work in ourselves. But for me, like the other day, I was doing a little 3-card spread and the Devil card came up. And my gut, like my initial reaction is I'm like, okay, that means this person involved in this situation is representing the devil and it's really bad and the cards are telling me to run away. And I don't actually believe that. I would never say that to someone. I would never feel that in a reading for someone, I don't think. So now, and I mean, that's the last reading I did for myself a few days ago. When I do read for myself, it's once every couple weeks, maybe max. And I try to sit with the cards. I'll leave them out. I'll leave them somewhere in my home that feels protective and special, and I can see them and think about them. And I just moved into a new space a little bit ago, and I've always lived in like apartment spaces where there's not an outdoor area, or there is, and it's like surrounded by neighbors and lots of noise. This is my first time really having an outdoor space where I'm planting things, and I got like the best money I've ever spent in my life. I bought this really comfy chair, and I am sitting out there doing so much journaling. I'll just write down a thought or have a couple books next to me and let myself just read a page or two and like dissociate and like look at the sky.
Oh, I love that. That sounds so peaceful.
It is. And that's the other thing. I think it got to a point, the deeper I get in my relationship with tarot and with the individual cards, I see cards everywhere. I see tarot everywhere. And I think that's more so how I read for myself. A few months ago, I remember leaving an event and feeling conflicted about something. I made a decision and I was feeling just really a lot of turmoil, a lot of discomfort with the decision I had made, and was like, did I do the right thing? And I walked outside and there was this gorgeous double rainbow above like downtown Bloomington. You know, it was gorgeous, and it just felt like the 10 of Cups. I was like, there's the 10 of Cups. It felt like everything is going to be okay. Like that you're on the right path, keep going. And I'm getting chills again. I felt so much peace just seeing that card out in the world. And I really love the magic of meaning making.
Yes.
Like, it's so much easier when you're reading for someone else to like create and make magic. So it's so much more energy and work to do that for myself.
Yes, it is the hardest for yourself. I relate to that being like the hardest on myself when I'm reading, and I do feel like I read differently than for other people. I find my readings for other people, my default is hope. You know, like my default is always hope. And I do feel like people typically leave readings with me feeling hopeful, or at least, and maybe that's part of feeling empowered too. It's like my hope is that they feel like they are more empowered, and that gives them hope. Like I can choose something different, or I can change this. So I think that's kind of tied in together. But it is interesting how when reading for myself, it's like not quite as hopeful. I love seeing cards in real life. Just a little wink from whatever's going on out in the universe, right? That, like everything's going to be okay. I think that's so beautiful, your 10 of Cups story. Reading for yourself. It's useful. I do think it's healthy that you don't do it too often. I have some friends who will be like, oh, I'm pulling cards about everything. And I'm just like, oof, don't do that. You know, like just step back a little bit, take the control back in your hands. It's not the cards. That's not where the control is or where the power is, right? It's in you, and just like slow down. Yeah. Read a page of a book, you sit outside. Sometimes I feel like that's more useful even. I have just a little speed round of 5 questions. Okay, so let's do this. This is tarot speed round. Okay, favorite deck.
Favorite deck. So, okay, I'm going to shout out a deck. I don't actually have this deck. I haven't used it yet. I have no excuse for not ordering it yet, but Stephanie Gilbert's, I think it's called Playdate with the Universe. Stephanie Gilbert, I've been following on Instagram for some time, following her process through collaging this deck. And I think through that, seeing the art she's creating and the cards she's creating, I cannot wait to get my hands on that deck. So not a deck I have yet, but that's a deck that I'm feeling really drawn to. And I can also name a deck that I already work with.
No, that's fine. I love that.
Too.
I'm definitely going to check that out. I don't know that deck or the artist either. So that's great. Do you have a favorite card?
Favorite card? It changes. You know, it really does change. I am really connecting to the Empress card right now.
Ooh, I love that. I think that's so cool. All right. Do you have a least favorite card or one that just you struggle to work with for yourself?
I mean, it feels, I don't know, expected, but I've struggled with the Tower card. I've had moments of pulling, oh my gosh, I moved to Chicago a few years ago and I was like, I'm just going to pull one card. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to take it at face value for what it is. This card's going to represent my move and my time in this city. And I pulled the Tower card and I remember panicking. And my time in Chicago absolutely was one of the biggest Tower experiences of my life that I have a lot of gratitude for. And of course, I see now that the card was I was already in the Tower moment. I very much knew that. But that card still, when I pull it for myself, I'm like, ooh, I'm a little spooked.
Do you feel like your time in Chicago, like, do you have like a negative association with your time there? Like, did it feel really hard? And yeah. It was also, so something else when I got into tarot was I did not know how much I was about to learn about astrology. I never was an astrology person. And now, like, you know, kind of into it. It was also like when my Saturn return was starting, and I associate so much of that with, Chicago was really hard. There was a lot of uprooting relationships and systems and illusions of comfort and safety that really needed to be uprooted. And I mean, it's a couple years behind me now, and I'm so grateful for those moments and what I gained from that experience in that time. And I see where pulling out those roots have allowed me to plant seeds that are like even more luscious and healthy and beautiful. So I have a lot of gratitude for the Tower card, but absolutely it's a card that I'm like, I would rather not see that come up. But for other people, I'm like, oh, how lovely. I know. I'm such a freak. I love the Tower because you know what's coming after is going to be so much better. I think that's why. But I totally get it. Pulling it can be a little spooky. Court card that you most relate to right now?
Queen of Wands.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a good place to be.
Okay, something else, if it's okay, fun little anecdote.
Yes.
I used to connect so strongly to the Queen of Cups, right? I'm a Pisces, just like I feel so much peace around the water, really striving to like balance my emotions, out of just the relationships of it all. And I also very much associate Queen of Cups with the work I was doing personally during my time in Chicago. I went back to Chicago one time after moving away, and by that time I had my tarot account. When I travel, I'll bring cards and like make content with them, which I love and I hate at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was up by Lake Michigan having such a beautiful day and like really reflecting on my time of Chicago. It felt kind of like a love letter, a goodbye letter to Chicago on that trip. And I had the cards like I thought secured. I was by Lake Michigan, and all of a sudden there's a card face down in Lake Michigan. And it was like not in a place, no one was going into Lake Michigan at that particular location. And I was like, what card just flew into Lake Michigan in this deck? It was in my Modern Witch deck, which I see behind you right now. So I'm going through the deck, and it was the Queen of Cups card. The Queen of Cups card had like become an escape artist, flew into Lake Michigan.
You were
face
not
down,
getting it back.
I'm not getting that card back.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, okay, I am moving out of my Queen of Cups. It felt like a final goodbye letter. I'm going to leave a part of myself, a part of my heart up here in Chicago. I'll come back and visit. But I've kind of felt like, okay, I kind of understand what I needed to move through with the Queen of Cups. And I think I'm feeling more in line with the Queen of Wands now.
Very cool. Wow. Great. I love that progression. And my next question is the spookiest or most wildly synchronistic tarot moment you can remember, which, I mean, you just gave one, but
I think I've already, the
I was
Tower
like,
card and the Queen of Cups card.
yeah, I'm like, you did a little psychic
Yeah.
thing right there and you anticipated my next question because I feel like that's a
Whoa.
pretty wild synchronicity. The Queen of Cups disappearing on you like that. I don't know how you could top that. That's pretty epic.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we call it for the day, do you want to draw a quick card and we can kind of go back and forth a little bit about it as a sort of collective reading for the listeners for this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Temperance.
Temperance? That's one of my earrings.
I love that.
Aw.
She's wearing
love
a
the
temperance
temperance card.
earring. Oh my goodness. Okay, yes. So, talk to me a little bit about this card and some of the reflections you like to make with this card.
Well, when you just pulled that up and showed it to me, can I ask what deck that's from?
Yes, it's the Tarot of the Witch's Garden,
Beautiful.
I believe.
It's the imagery, this specific, the way the colors are kind of pastel. It kind of looks like watercolor in the background. Something about this card, it just brought me such a sense of peace. Right? Like seeing this, I feel really peaceful. Something I really love about the Temperance card, I don't know where I heard this. There's probably someone I need to credit. I don't know who that is. I remember hearing someone speak about it, she's balancing two things in her hands, right? Like she's kind of pouring water between two hands. Something about that representing fire and water in her hands. And she's making fire and water coexist at the same time when that should not physically be possible. And the magic that exists in that type of creation and deep intrinsic trust of self. I always think of that when I see the Temperance card is like, ooh, like what magical duality do you contain?
I love that. I just recently read in a book that said that in some decks, this card used to be the Alchemist. So,
Yeah.
right, that makes a lot of sense. It's like combining two things and creating something entirely new that, didn't exist before and has magical properties. This card to me is like always, I actually pull this one a lot. And in this deck, she almost looks like a fairy or something. In a lot of decks, it's an angel. And so when this one comes up, it always feels to me like a little reminder that my spirit guides are with me or that I am not alone, that I have help. And that I can ask for help too. That's always a big.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like that's always a big message I get with this card is I'm not alone and that there's support for my healing and for my journey and I can ask for it at any time.
Yeah, you're giving me chills, Mari, because I drew the Temperance card. I went to Scotland very briefly last year and I had never been. And I drew the Temperance card before my trip and I was kind of like, I wonder why this is coming up. And I felt like when I was there, I felt something. It was like something in the air almost, like something you could feel. The best way to describe it is just like the invisible lines that connect us all. Like I felt very connected to other souls, the souls around me. I don't know, past, present, future. I felt so connected to the earth there, the environment there. Something you said about like letting yourself ask for help. Something about that brought up that memory for me and just the feeling it. Yeah. So I personally associate the vibe of the Temperance card with that was like the loveliest couple of days of my life, probably. Wow. It was such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it's such a nice energy. I do feel like when this one comes up, it's sort of like a little bit of a breath of relief or something. It's like, like connected, safe. So it's a lovely energy.
Like a deep exhale.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. To finish up here, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you out in the world or on the internet?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Tarot with Melissa, and there's a dot between all the words. I also have a website where folks can reach out, book readings. I offer readings. Sometimes I offer workshops, one-on-one mentoring sessions. Any and all of that information and contact forms are at tarotwithmelissa.com.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. This has been such a delight. Loved hearing all your stories. And thank you so much for being my first tarot reader and now my first podcast guest. It's just too cool. I think it's great.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the work you're doing and I love your podcast. And it's such an honor to be here. And it's been so fun to be able to chat with you some more about tarot stuff.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Melissa. All of her information will be in the show notes. Don't forget to leave your 5-star reviews and tell your friends all about this lovely podcast to help support and keep it going. If you'd like to connect with me, I'm at Mari of the Woods on Instagram and TikTok. That's Mari. And my website is mariofthewoods.com, where you can book a reading and find all my information. I hope you experience the lovely energy of the Temperance card this week. And until next time, happy wandering.